Good morning, everybody. I am Saagar Enjeti, and it is
Krystal
Friday.
Ball. Oh, I jumped right on top of you.
It's all good.
It's okay. They know your name now. You don't have to say it every time.
That's true.
Like you're on the sign now. It's all good. We've got a lot in the show. So Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, big interview with him, talking about what they're up to. Also, new poll out today with some good news for Elizabeth Warren and some very bad news for Kamala Harris. So we'll look at that.
Absolutely. More coming up on Rising. Things are heating up across the world. What are you taking a look at, Krystal?
Indeed. Today I'm looking at playing with fire. Some things going on over by Iran that are not good. So yesterday morning we learned that 2 tankers had been attacked in the Gulf of Oman near the strategically critical Strait of Hormuz. That's where some 40% of oil goes right around there. And pretty quickly, the administration, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, came out and blamed Iran for the attacks. Let's take a listen.
Iran is lashing out because the regime wants our successful maximum pressure campaign lifted. No economic sanctions entitle the Islamic Republic to attack innocent civilians, disrupt global oil markets, and engage in nuclear blackmail. Taken as a whole, these unprovoked attacks present a clear threat to international peace and security, a blatant assault on the freedom of navigation, and an unacceptable campaign of escalating tension by Iran.
So you will recall that tensions had already been ratcheted up with Iran previously. We'd moved in a carrier group to the region as well as some troops. Some tankers were struck previously, and this is what the president had to say about those events at the time. He said, if Iran wants to fight, that will be the official end of Iran. Never threaten the United States again. Yesterday in response, he said he did not think that now was the time for diplomacy. And look, I don't think that President Trump wants a war with Iran. I do think some of his advisors are in favor of regime change, John Bolton and potentially Pompeo among them. However, it would not be the first time in American history that a case was ginned up for a conflict that not many people really wanted. Beware the military-industrial complex here, because there are a whole lot of people who make their living and make a whole lot of money off of starting wars around the world. And in case you're wondering whether we could go to war with Iran without Congress having to have a say in the matter, well, there was a little noticed exchange on the floor of the House yesterday, picked up by a guy named Benjamin Armbruster, and basically Matt Gaetz, who's a Republican, and Democrat Alyssa Slotkin confirmed that the administration had made the case to them that the existing authorization for the use of military force would in fact cover conflict with Iran. So the administration has made the case that they have the power to go to war with Iran without asking Congress. That is what they believe. And again, Saagar, I don't think that we are there, but this makes me nervous. And look, also in that press conference yesterday with Pompeo, they didn't actually present any intelligence to prove that Iran was behind the attacks. I'm not saying they weren't, but I would tell people to be skeptical and make sure you are asking questions about what is actually going on here.
Absolutely. We should always be skeptical about what's coming out. I did appreciate that they actually put out the video of the Iranians in a boat coming to retrieve a landmine, which was the exact type of mine that was used in a previous attack, which it seems to me that they're obviously responsible for this. But you're right, which is things, and I tweeted this yesterday, people significantly underestimate how fast things can go hot in this type of the world. One of those landmines gets dislodged and hits a USS destroyer. That's it. It's literally, it is under the authorization, or under the rules of self-defense, we'd be authorized in order to have a strike against Iran. I'm not saying that it would happen,
right.
But like I said, you have the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain sitting there like only a couple hundred miles from Iran. Things can go hot very quickly,
right.
And we should all just take a deep breath and say, nobody wants this.
Nobody wants this.
Literally, the Iranians don't want it. They know they'd be smoked in a day. And the United States doesn't want it because, a lot of our troops would die.
Well, and the other piece of this, let's say that it is Iran who was in fact responsible for the attacks, which is the most likely scenario, although again, I would say I hold out some skepticism. this administration has basically backed them into the corner. I mean, we are waging economic war on Iran already, and we are attempting to destabilize that country and that regime. So, we cut off, or we declared the IRG terrorist group, which they are, but it's also very hypocritical that we do it there. We don't say anything about Saudi, et cetera, et cetera. But we've increased sanctions, we've cut off their ability to export oil, which is the lifeblood of that economy. And so they are feeling very much backed in the corner. The regime has to make sure they save face and look tough and look like they've got a handle on the situation. So the Trump administration has created a very dangerous, unstable situation.
Well, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Obama gave them several $100 billion, and then they used all of it to finance their terrorist activity in Syria, and a couple 100,000 Syrians died.
That was their money, by the way.
Oh, I mean, it was the Shah's money. That doesn't mean we have to give it back to them.
But
it's more what I'm saying is he's trying to pump all this German, European capital into their economy with this foolish notion that if you take a bunch of radical Islamists and you give them money and open them up to capitalism, that they'll stop being radical Islamists. It didn't work with Chinese communists. It doesn't really work with anybody unless you have a system and a cultural framework which lets you to accept that. So just the idea of integrating somebody into the global economy will make you less radical is ridiculous. We have to go back to the founding documents of that country. They hate America. It's not difficult to understand.
But we were in a much safer place when we were in the deal and they were in the deal and we were in a framework. I mean,
they're harassing our ships all across the Gulf. It was a
bad place that we're in.
It's all bad. I mean, they're bad. They're bad people. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, let's just be clear.
Yes, not the Iranian people. The people who run that country are bad. They support terrorism. They hate the United States. They're responsible for the deaths of hundreds of our soldiers in Iraq and many before. And
nobody, but it should be said, no one has done more to export violent jihadism than Saudi Arabia,
totally,
our close allies.
Absolutely.
Saagar, what you looking at?
I'm taking a look, speaking of nefarious actors, I'm looking at the actress Jessica Biel and the campaign of vaxxers fighting against the anti-vaxxers. So the actress Jessica Biel accompanied Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to the California State Assembly in order to lobby against a bill called the Legislative Council 120370, which requires medical exemptions to be approved by a doctor in the state of California. It is very important to note that Mrs. Biel actually came out and said that she doesn't necessarily oppose vaccines, but that she thinks that it's too stringent for medical exemptions to have to be approved by a state health official. So the important distinction there within this legislation is that your own personal doctor would not be able to approve it, but a approved member of the state would have to. This comes after historic measles outbreaks across the Pacific Northwest, California, Colorado, and the state of New York. Now, Mrs. Biel might be well-intentioned. I think many of these people seem to be well-intentioned. Some of them are just nefarious, bad actors. Now, the state of New York actually moved forward yesterday, officially approved legislation which requires only medical exemptions that will allow people to be vaccinated. That means there are no longer religious exemptions for people. I had the Surgeon General of the United States on this program a couple of days ago to talk about this very issue. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Well, number one, we have to say it over and over. Vaccines are safe, they're effective, they're the most important public health intervention of the last 100 years, ranks right up there with many of the other things that we consider critical to public health.
There it is from the Surgeon General of the United States himself. I also asked him specifically about this type of legislation. He said any state which makes it so that medical exemptions are the only exemptions have higher vaccination rates, ergo less deaths of children. And we are making important inroads. Anti-vaxxers thrive on the internet. They thrive on YouTube. They thrive on websites, Twitter, Instagram, with their own hashtags and their own community of misinformation. Yesterday, the company MailChimp made the very good decision in order to stop allowing anti-vaxxers to create newsletters, which they were raising significant amounts of money for. Now, there's a deplatforming debate in this country around politics, and that I have many different thoughts on. But whenever your advocacy is directly leading to the deaths and the danger of children, it's important that all of us fight back and make sure that these people are not welcome in the public square. I'm glad to see, Krystal, the the massive pushback against Jessica Biel,
Yeah.
against the fool that Robert F. Kennedy is for pushing this. His own family comes out and says what he is doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's both heartening but also sad that we even had to get to a space like this.
I am all for the public shaming of Jessica Biel, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., et cetera, and any other prominent anti-vaxxers. I mean, the thing that really upsets me about this, as a mother, right, is that it's not your kid. If your kids are healthy, right, they're going to get the vaccines, they're going to be fine. But if you don't get the vaccines, they're probably not the ones that are going to have the problem.
Right.
It's the kids who are immunocompromised, who can't get the vaccines, who are depending on your kids to be healthy to keep them safe. It is an unbelievably selfish, irresponsible move to not get your kids vaccinated when your kids are healthy. You are putting other children at risk, and that's what really upsets me about all of this.
Well, that is, it's so upsetting, and for some reason we can all understand it. When a kid has a peanut allergy, the parents are like, "Oh, he has a terrible peanut allergy.
Right.
We shouldn't send peanuts in the lunch." To the thing, it's so simple. And yet, whenever it comes to measles, which will actually kill you and kill several others because it's an airborne virus, one of the most nefarious viruses ever created by nature.
Incredibly.
That's what I mean. It's like we're living in such a privileged age that we don't understand how terrible these diseases are. And so to fight back against it, I'm very happy with MailChimp's decision. I wish Amazon, actually Amazon is the one thing, I talk about this a lot here, which is there's way too much anti-vax literature on Amazon right now.
Oh, really?
For would-be parents who type in a search bar and they go to look for vaccine information on books. All these books are all the way on the top, the very first thing that you see. About books about the truth about vaccines.
All
that needs to be
nonsense.
changed.
And how do you know, like,
Right.
as a parent, how do you know what's real science, and what's just
And I don't,
BS?
again with these parents, they're scared. It's scary to watch. I'm sure for you, it was scary to watch your kids get vaccinated. It's not fun.
It's not fun. They scream, they're not happy.
It's not fun watching needles get plugged into your child.
Yeah.
But there's a greater good here that it's our job, it's doctors' job, it's everybody's job to contextualize. Screaming at people absolutely doesn't work, but it's blatantly irresponsible for actresses like Jessica Biel to be doing something like this.
She should know better. Next up on Rising, Young Turks founder Cenk Uygur believes that the only way Democrats will lose to Trump in 2020 is if there is a major candidate who appears to be an elitist. He's going to expand on that.
And the protests over a controversial extradition law in Hong Kong continue to escalate. Asia expert Gordon Chang updates us on the latest developments as Rising continues.